Hi, my name is Rama, and today I'm here in the middle of eternity, where I am every day. Our subject is reincarnation. You've lived before and you will live again. It's the mystery of existence. We've had countless lives, whether we remember them or not, before us, and we have many, many lives ahead of us. I've always been fascinated by reincarnation. I don't know why, it always made sense to me. As a matter of fact, a number of years ago, I wrote a book called Lifetimes, True Accounts of Reincarnation. I met and interviewed many, many people who'd remembered their past lives, people who remembered things that there's just no way they could have known them. And we were able to historically validate their remembrances. We found out they were true. It was a lot of fun. We took the book on the road. I was on the Phil Donahue show and actually about 150 television and radio shows. The book went through 14 printings, and it was very exciting. The reason I wrote the book was to tell people more about reincarnation. And I think it was helpful for people to hear people's accounts, the remembrances. But today, I'd like to talk to you more about the theory of reincarnation, what reincarnation is, how it works, and some implications that might have for you. Now, reincarnation is the belief that we've always existed. That is to say, the universe goes on forever. It's the most amazing, magnificent thing. And it creates out of itself all the beings, all the worlds, all the things, both sentient and non-sentient, that exist. It creates new things from time to time. Within each being, there's a little tiny molecule, a little kind of I suppose, a spiritual DNA. There's a little essence, which some call the soul. They call it the Atman in India. That's the essence of a thing. And that essence has always existed, will always exist, and exists right now. Each one of us has a soul. The soul doesn't exactly have a personality, but it's special, it's unique. Each soul is different. So at one point or another, each of us, according to the theory of reincarnation, started a journey, a great journey. We started a journey through eternity. And we've been on that journey a long time, so long that we've probably forgotten, like a weary traveler, most of the places we've been, people we've met, and experiences we've had. I think probably the best place for most of us to pick up our journey, to remember it, is on this earth, maybe even just a few lifetimes ago. Where were you in your last life? Where were you 10 lives ago? Do you live in Egypt? Did you live in Greece? Did you live in Paris 500 years ago, when the city was new? Reincarnation is an exciting idea, but it's true. Karma is a very misunderstood subject. Now, karma and reincarnation cannot possibly be separated. Karma has to do with how you reincarnate. As a matter of fact, we might say that karma is the essence of reincarnation. Now, let's assume that you're reincarnating as a human being, because otherwise you wouldn't be watching me on video unless your dog or cat watches the video. Right now, you're in a human form. And you've probably been in a human form for a long time, because according to the theory of reincarnation, we don't change forms very often. Once we start to reincarnate in an organic cycle, let's say as a human being, you'll continue through that cycle for a long, long, long time. So you've been a human being for quite a while. And you have to continue being a human being till you get it right. That's the belief of reincarnation. We cannot move from one level to a higher level until we come to a resolution with that which we are and the universe that we're in. Reincarnation, you might say, is the way that the universe teaches itself about itself. So in each lifetime we have experiences. And the way that we react to those experiences creates karma. Karma is the law of cause and effect. That is to say, I suppose, in a way, what you do comes back to you. Not necessarily precisely mathematically. In essence, in karma, you come back to you. Because the way that we react to things, the thoughts that we hold in our mind, the emotions, the feelings, create the person who we are. In each lifetime, we pick up where we left off. So let's say in your last lifetime, you had reached a certain level of understanding about life. Now, when you're born as a newborn baby, of course, at that moment, you don't necessarily have that understanding. In each life we go through kind of a spiritual amnesia, a period of time where we forget who we were and what we were. But as time progresses, as we get older, we begin to remember, we begin to regain our awareness to a certain extent. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have exact memories of your past lives. I mean, if you meditate a lot, you will. That's inevitable. Meditation develops our ability to remember past lives because it's a bridge, it's a connection between what we call other memory, the memory of our past lives, and our current life. Maybe it's good that we don't remember to start with when we're very young, because if suddenly thousands of memories from thousands of lives crowded in on you, perhaps you wouldn't get a chance to become someone new. I'm not really sure, it just works that way. So reincarnation is really like a train journey. We're on a train, perhaps the Orient Express. We're traveling a long distance, and sometimes we're riding and we're looking out the window and everything is very vivid. And then we get kind of tired, the rhythm of the train is moving along. We get sleepy and we fall asleep. Then we wake up someplace new. We look out the window, there's a new experience. And this journey goes on forever, forever. But it's a journey in which you can change. It's a journey in which you can grow and develop and become happier. We become happier through self-knowledge, and that's what karma is. Karma is a reflection of what we've learned in our past lives. And as I said before, we don't always know those things right away. Sometimes it takes time to remember. Sometimes experiences trigger remembrances. When I wrote Lifetimes, True Accounts of Reincarnation, it was interesting to talk to people who remembered their past lives. It was interesting to see what brought up those memories. For some people, it was travel. They would visit the Orient, they would visit Europe, they would go to South America or Latin America. And they found that once they'd gone to a place that they were just drawn to, suddenly they wanted to visit Tibet or Chile or someplace. And it was an overpowering urge. And once they would go there, if for some reason they just had the faith in that feeling, or they couldn't stop themselves, and they'd get off the plane or off the boat, and they'd walk around or hike in the mountains or walk through city streets, suddenly they would have feelings that they couldn't explain, deep emotional feelings, attachments to places. Sometimes they would meet people in places like that who they just knew they had met before. There was a commonality. I'm sure you've experienced that. Have you ever met someone, a stranger, and suddenly you were very close to them? Perhaps you knew them better than the people who you'd known for years? Well, that's a little bit of reincarnation. Sometimes in lives we run into people we've known before. Now, that's not always a good thing. I mean, think about it. I know that, everybody's looking for their soulmate, I guess. I'm running away from mine, I think. But, if there is such a thing. But, in any case, sometimes we meet people who we've known before. Maybe you knew someone in childhood, and maybe you got along then, and you'd meet today and get along. Maybe you wouldn't. Sometimes we meet people who we've had bad experiences with, and we'll have bad experiences again, meaning they have a very bad attitude towards us. So in cases like that, I don't think it's always good to run into people. That is to say, just because we've known somebody before doesn't mean that it's going to be a good experience. I'm not sure about this soulmate thing at all, that finding people we've been close to before is something desirable. Personally, I like to meet new people all the time. But it's a small planet. It's a small world after all. And sometimes we are just drawn by these strong past life ties that we have. And we run into people, and we get very close to them. And sometimes we don't get along. And that's when patience and understanding of past lives can be very, very helpful. Very often people in families reincarnate together, many, many times in different relationships. Sometimes a father will incarnate, that is to say, the father and he has a daughter. But maybe in the last lifetime, she was the mother and he was the son. Sometimes emotions cause people, love, attachment, to be drawn together, even if they don't get along well. And sometimes we have very strong and conflicting emotions with people. We don't know why. Suddenly we just meet somebody and we have an attitude about them. Sometimes we're close to someone and we really want to be kind to them and have good experiences with them, but we always fight. We don't know why. Well, Very often it has to do with what happened in our past lives. In a past life, you may have had a very negative experience with a person. They may have murdered you, they may have taken your wallet, or maybe you were just in love and it didn't work out. The timing was bad. We've all had that experience. Well, in this life, suppose you run into someone and you meet them and you don't know that. You don't remember anything, but your body remembers, your soul remembers, but that's not yet conscious. So you meet somebody and suddenly you're afraid of them, or you're drawn to them, or there's conflict. Understanding our past lives is a wonderful thing because it really helps us relate better to people. It helps us overcome the fear of death, because when we remember our past lives, we know that when we die, it's not awful. We're going to go on to a new existence. We get a fresh start. When we remember our past lives, we know that when we see people we love go through terrible, terrible experiences, pain, suffering, that this is only a moment in their experience. It's not a final judgment call at all. When something happens to someone that we love, we know that when they die, all those experiences, be they good or bad, are washed away into the cosmic memory. They become part of us. We have a remembrance. But really, the pain of life and the suffering vanishes. It goes away, and we get a new chance, a new start, a new life. You know, the universe doesn't sit in judgment. I mean, I know some people think that, but I don't think so. The universe just is. And it creates all kinds of beings and forms, and it gives everything life forever. I think that's a positive way to look at things, and it's true. Now you might say, well, how do I know all this? I mean, yes, I wrote a book about reincarnation, and I've interviewed thousands of people who remember their past lives, and some of them were obviously just wishful thinking. I mean, part of the fun of doing lifetimes was finding the people whose remembrances could be validated historically, people who knew things about countries they'd never been to, people who could speak languages that they'd never been exposed to. But I've also studied with Buddhist masters in the Far East, yoga masters, Hindu masters, Taoist masters, Zen masters, and from them I've learned a great deal. I learned many, many techniques for remembering your past lives. And I learned an embracing philosophical view towards life whereby you can understand your role in the cosmos. You can understand life, the currents of life, both the ones you can see and the ones that you can't, and how they affect you. The most important current to understand is karma, I really think. That is to say, what goes around comes around. It's really true, but not necessarily in one lifetime. Now, we all get frustrated sometimes because we're trying to do something, we're trying to make things work out, and it just seems impossible. I mean, life just doesn't seem fair. People who are nasty sometimes get ahead, people who are nice don't. And you say, well, there's no justice in life. There is. What goes around comes around. Because what goes around is you, and what comes around is you. You go around and you come around forever. And whatever you do becomes part of you. If you are nasty, if you hold hateful thoughts and emotions, if you rip people off, you know, you're ripping yourself off. Because when you do that, you sink into very low mental states. Hate and feelings of intensive alienation, for a while at least, become part of us. And when you live in a world of hate, you become hate. And in your next life, you're born into that same consciousness. You're born into just an unhappy state. You can change that. The good news about reincarnation, of course, is at any point in time, no matter how many incarnations that you've had that have not been happy, you can learn something about life, from life, and you can change your karma. You can learn to be happy. You can learn that kindness rather than anger, gentleness rather than hate, patience rather than impatience can translate for you personally into a very positive result. The result is that you feel better. You see, the universe is made up of light. Now, you have to understand, everything vibrates. I'm not trying to give you a spiritual sermon on being good that's based upon an ideology. I'm talking about molecules and how life works. Everything is made up of energy. everything. Everything is made up of atoms, but dimensions, inner dimensions are made up of energy too. And everything vibrates, but at different rates. Now, there's certain emotions and feelings that vibrate very fast, and those are the happy emotions. And then there's certain emotions and currents that vibrate very, very slowly. And those are what I guess we would call negative or unhappy emotions. Feelings of hate, oppression, nastiness. These things are part of the panorama of existence, but they vibrate very slowly. When you allow hate, anger, jealousy, things we feel from time to time, but when you allow those thoughts to become a way of life for you, you actually slow your vibration down. The vibration of your thoughts affects the vibration of your being. And gradually, you become even more like that. On the other hand, when you introduce positive thoughts and do positive things for people, you'll notice a funny thing will happen. You'll start to smile. You'll start to be happy for no reason. If you don't think so, if you don't believe me, if you think I'm making this up or laying a trip on you, try it. Go do something for someone that's really nice, but don't expect a return. Don't wait for them to thank you. Just do it for the hell of it. And what have you got to lose? You're going to die anyway and be reborn anyway forever. What have you got to lose? You can't lose yourself, because wherever you go, there you are. Try my experiment. Try the next time you're going to get impatient, the next time you're going to get angry, the next time you're going to rage with jealousy, try stopping that for a minute. Take a stress break. Chill out. Remember, this whole universe is around us, and it's made up of vibrating energy. And what we focus on, we become. You can get entrapped in very low mental states and low levels of energy, depression, anger, hate, frustration, or you can move yourself into light, into higher light, into the light. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows what higher light is. Some people pretend not to, but we all know. We're born with that knowledge. I don't know if there's good and evil. I think that's a philosophical point of view. But there's certainly right and wrong. And right is something that leads to happiness, and wrong is something that leads to unhappiness. And the universe reflects that. And that's what karma is. Karma means that what we do comes back to us. It translates into our mental state. So you really can't fool the universe. Whatever you do, whatever you think, whatever you hold in your mind, you become. So it's really worth it to understand how karma works if you want to be happy. The universe is magic. If we just open our eyes, not just our outer eyes, but our inner eyes, and look around us, what would we see? We'd see light taking its forms in endless ways, new ways, and very ancient ways. We'd see that there is no death, there's just constant rebirth. Now, that idea, to a Buddhist, of course, is not happy in a sense. Buddhists are a little weird this way, I think, people who do yoga. Because some people think the idea of living forever is a terrifying thought. That is to say, endless births and incarnations in what they consider pain and suffering. And they feel that there's a place called nirvana, that if they can get there, everything's wonderful forever. Well, that's really an incorrect understanding of Buddhism and reincarnation. And as I've suggested before, different people have different understandings of reincarnation. The correct view, again, according to Far Eastern tradition and Rama, is that everything is light, everything is perfection, and that the human mind cannot possibly understand the machinations and the shapes of life. What we can understand is that there's a flow to existence. We can intuit it. And that when we go with existence, when we harmonize ourselves with its patterns that are appropriate for our life, that there's a form, a beauty to our life. There's a cadence, there's a melody. It's very melodic. And even strife can be beautiful. On the other hand, when we go against the patterns of life, of our past lives, if we go against the evolution of our incarnations, if we try to prevent existence from doing what it wants to do, we experience a great deal of pain. Nirvana is not a place. It's not a place you go to like heaven. Nirvana is here and now. It's an understanding. It's an awareness of the eternality of life. It's knowing that life is infinitely beautiful and infinitely precious, and that we can always be happy, as a matter of fact, in a state of ecstasy, if we become enlightened, if we will open our mind and open our spirit to be taught by life itself, by the universe. Meditation, as I'm sure you know, is a practice in which we gradually become more aware. By stilling our mind, making our thoughts very quiet, we open up our psychic body of perception so that we can see eternity. We can see our past lives, we can learn from them, we can just merge our mind with the universe, different parts of it, and come to deep understandings about the riddle of existence, why we exist, who we are, and we can learn that we have possibilities that we didn't know at all. We can learn how to transform ourselves, transform our consciousness into beings of light. That may sound a little etheric for you if you've been out on the street lately, but I've traveled around the world. You know, I've been on the street. I got my black belt. And I've seen many sides of life. And I don't see anything that disagrees with this view in what I've experienced. I've traveled the world just in this life. I've met all kinds of people. People you consider, I guess, very good, and maybe people you consider very bad. And I found some beauty in all of them. If you look within the human soul, there's always light. So reincarnation is an understanding that can help you express yourself in many different ways. When you look at a person and you can see, well, yes, this person is kind of hung up here and they're angry today and they're frustrated, but if you can see their past lives, if you can see them as a multi-incarnation being, and when you develop your psychic senses, you actually can see these things, just like I see the camera in front of me. You gain an insight into a person that's very valuable in dealing with them. And of course, you gain insights into yourself. When you see, for example, that a person has had a particular problem for many lives, they're still trying to overcome attachment to something or this, that, or the other thing, then you don't get pissed off at them. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not as pissed off. Because it's like working with children. You know, children are learning, and we are very patient with them because we know that that's part of the process of growth. We learn something, we make mistakes, we learn from our mistakes. Well, really, all beings are children if you see that they're going through a series of bodies and incarnations. Nothing is final. Everybody's learning from one life to another and through thousands and millions of lifetimes. When you gain that insight, when you can see a person's past lives, then you can see where they are in their development. And you'll say, oh, wait a second, I could get angry at so-and-so for being the way they are today. But why? This is where they are in their development. That is to say, we're all on the way to enlightenment. We're all on the way to self-knowledge. But it takes a while to get there. And in the process of living, for the universe's own reasons, we have to go through every stage of evolution. It's kind of like let's say that you were the son or daughter of the president of a big company. Now maybe they were kind of hard-assed, or maybe they just were smart. And rather than move you into the executive suite when you were 21, they said, we're going to give you, for a short period of time, every job in the factory. And you're going to work on the line, you're going to unload pallets for a while, then you're going to work in shipping, then you're going to work in management. We want you to learn every aspect, because then when you go around the factory someday, if you run it, you'll never put anybody down. You will have what we call a compassionate understanding. It's easy to put somebody down if you've never been there. You know what I mean? It's easy to say, hey, that person's weak because they use drugs or because they are an alcoholic. But have you really walked in their shoes? Do you know what their experience is? I think reincarnation exists, if the universe has reasons, so that we can gain understanding, we can gain knowledge, because we find from one lifetime to another ourselves in really every position that there is to experience in existence. At one time or another, we are everyone. We go through every stage of existence. And gradually, as you become wiser, as you expand your mind and you draw the remembrances of your past lives into the current lifetime, you just become patient. You understand life in a way that I can't explain in words, except to say that you learn to accept many things. You learn to accept life, death, transformation. You learn to accept yourself, which is the hardest thing, isn't it? Accept yourself with a view of brightness towards change. In other words, right now you are in the mental state you're in the physical condition you're in the spiritual condition that you're in, as is everyone and every being in the universe. But as your view of life expands, as you understand that we're all in an evolutionary process, that we're all kids in school forever, then you realize that the states of change that we go through, of growth, development, maturation, death, and rebirth, are a wonderful awakening. And you're able to take those changes and observe beings in transit, which we all are forever, with peace, with stillness, with happiness and with love, instead of always being angry and frustrated. You know that everything finally works out. There's only light on the highest levels, and all of this is the play of existence. Well, I suppose I could rattle on about reincarnation forever. I tend to, because I just keep incarnating and keep seeing more of the wonders of existence, and I feel its pains too. But I would suggest to you that reincarnation, your understanding of it, even just your exploration of the concept, will widen your experience of life, your view of yourself and the world around you. Practice meditation. You'll remember your past lives, but more than just remembering that you were the king of Siam or the queen of Egypt, or maybe just someone sweeping the street there. More than that, you will gain an understanding, a compassion, a wisdom towards all things and all beings, because you'll see that everything is part of you, because you are the universe.